What does that mean? There we go. Sheena, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I hear you, no problem.
Thank you very much. Were you able to hear the very first bit there, or were you still muted?
The first thing I've heard is just you talking.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anyways, was just saying that I started off the meeting for Tuesday, October 13th of our Community Living and Standing Committee meeting. At the attendance, I just wanted to inform everybody that unfortunately Councillor Jolly cannot attend today due to personal reasons. I have Councillor Hughes and Mayor Herron here today, and we're also joined, I see, by Councillor Hanson, and I do not see anybody else. So welcome again. I'll call the meeting to order. Adoption of the agenda, any changes that I'm unaware of or any? I don't see anything. So I'm just going to adopt the agenda as presented in our report. Nobody else is in the room for appointments. Nobody is registered to speak. So we're going to be moving on to approval of the minutes. September 14th, 2020. Any errors, omissions, or changes? Counting down from 5. I don't see anybody. So I'm also going to adopt the September 14th, 2020 committee minutes and flying into new business. Flying. Just, we're not wasting time here. 6.1. Amplify Festival funding. Mr. Hiltz, you have any opening comments, or are you just going to move it right over to your staff?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We're moving it right over to Kathleen to do a presentation. Thank you.
Hi. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up the slide. Oh, I have to screen share first. Okay, can you see my slideshow?
I can see all of your slideshows, so just go into slide mode and we'll be away. Well done.
Okay,
ready to
cool. Okay, so I wanted to start today with a little bit of Amplify history. So in 2012, City Council approved a business case empowering the development of a youth festival, including contracting the services of a staff member to coordinate the project, a role eventually referred to as the Youth Festival Associate. In 2013, we assembled the first Amplify Advisory Committee, a cornerstone of the Youth Festival's planning strategy. We knew we needed a strong youth advisory committee to not only advise staff on the cultural needs of youth, but to also actively participate in the promotion, programming, and execution of the youth festival. In 2014, we worked with the Amplify Committee to create the structure for the first event, which ended up following a 2-day festival format. It worked on 3 levels in order to progress youth through the stages of artistic engagement. The first stage was barrier-free activities. So these were free, accessible, and fun. The second stage was educational workshops. So these were a richer engagement with more focused learning. The third stage was presentation opportunities. So these were platforms for youth who were ready to share their art. So things like Battle of the Bands, the art exhibit, poetry slams, etc. In 2015, we quickly realized learning about certain art forms didn't fit well into the 2-day festival format, such as writing, filmmaking, and fashion design. In 2015, the committee started to experiment with programming outside of the festival using grant funding from outside sources and sponsorship dollars, eventually leading to the idea for more year-round programming. In 2016 and from 2016 to 2019, the Amplify Creative Youth Development Program established itself as a multi-event arts program for youth, culminating with the festival in October. The focus was on creating high-impact opportunities for learning and confidence building, platforms for the amplification of youth voices, and professional opportunities for youth to share their art and build community. On November 21st, 2019, Council passed the following motion. that Amplify Festival be funded for $60,000 in 2020, $45,000 in 2021, and $30,000 in 2022, and that a plan for transitioning into a self-sustaining program, cost recovery, be presented to Council by October 30th, 2020. So here we are, stuck in the middle of COVID. So COVID-19 has changed the landscape of events and arts programming for the foreseeable future in terms of both safety and financial concerns, as well as restrictions for gatherings and certain activities as recommended by the provincial government. Given the financial fallout from COVID-19, coupled with the uncertain future of large cultural events, we recommend Amplify cease to function as an outside, annually reviewed project and instead find a home within the city's regular cultural development work executed by the city's community cultural coordinators. While the loss of project funding means the festival itself will no longer be financially feasible, Amplify will be able to rely on modest grant funding, fundraising, the existing arts development budget, and cost recovery models to continue to provide some of its smaller yet popular events. Events will be either no cost, like our podcast or open mics, or low cost, like our workshops and art walk, and run on a cost recovery basis where necessary. As a result, the city will save $75,000 over the next 2 years. This proposal will mean amplified programming will secure its place within the continuum of cultural development activities that we execute as a department, and allow for exactly the kind of flexibility needed to support youth and artists in these uncertain times. Feedback on the future of Amplify was gathered from the following internal and external partners: the Musée Héritage Museum, the Art Gallery of St. Albert Public Library, the Amplify Advisory Committee, the Youth Advisory Committee, Community and Social Development, Recreation and Parks, and the RCMP. And while each external cultural partner expressed that they valued Amplify's programming, without additional funding and resources, they would not be able to take on Amplify's programming or provide similar outcomes within their programming. Our partners made it clear that they'd be happy to continue to work with us and look forward to working together in the future. So our recommendation is that the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council that the St. Albert Amplify Creative Youth Development Program be transitioned into Community Services regular cultural development work within the purview of the Community Cultural Coordinators, and that Budget Motion PM 20084 approving separate project funding for the St. Albert Amplify Festival in 2021 and 2022 budget years be rescinded. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Hanson, Mayor Heron? Sheena, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Thank you. So the motion that was brought forward that council approved last year was to come forward with the transitional plan so that it could be self-sustaining. And I don't see any action that was done to actually try to fulfill this motion. So what was done to try to make this transition to become more self-sustaining and really to have it be directed by the youth? Because the recommendation you're providing today does not at all meet what was approved by council a year ago.
Paul,
I can jump in and answer that. So as Kathleen noted in the slide, she had met with a number of our internal and external partners to discuss exactly what council had asked for, how to transition the programming to an external organization. And the response from other organizations was, without additional funding, they would not be able to take this on. And unfortunately, in the middle of this, or even at the beginning of this, COVID hit and changed everything. And so the whole notion of running a festival, having the kids run a festival safely in COVID times is just not something that is possible. And so that's where the recommendation comes from, to cease the festival and to continue the sort of ongoing cultural development work that that our staff, our community cultural coordinators do, grant workshops and that sort of activity on a cost recovery basis as part of their daily work. So releasing that budget and not doing the festival anymore. Kathleen, did you have something to add?
Yeah, and we did talk to our cultural partners, and Parks and Rec, Community and Social Development, the RCMP, about the idea of having it 100% youth led, and they all had, it's a complex question, and I can kind of cover it in various ways, but they all thought that it would be best to have adult supervision when it comes to anything in this age range. Particularly the RCMP brought up concerns with safety. They very kind of plainly said, youth without boundaries, without supervision, they push those boundaries, every generation does it kind of thing, and this generation is not. And these types of events, concerts, open mics, they're super fun, but they also need supervision. And I did talk to teachers as well. The principal from Belrose told me, as much as, teachers do try to put the youth front and center when it comes to events, clubs, fundraisers that they're putting on, there's always a staff member behind their scenes. There's always a teacher advisor. The principal from Belrose says, when the event's running, we want to shine a spotlight on the work that the youth has done, but there's never not a teacher supervisor. So both in terms of safety from the perspective of the teachers, and I can get in a little bit as to how we built Amplify in terms of mentorship, in terms of adult role models. I can get into a little of that stuff too, but we did investigate the idea of the youth running it solo and just didn't get any kind of positive feedback from that area.
Okay, so first of all, I don't think that the motion said that they were to run it solo. It was that it was to be self-sustaining and fully cost recovered. I believe that the intention was for it to be youth directed, but not necessarily not supervised by somebody, by an adult. So the intention of the motion was not to have an external organization take it over. The intention of the motion was not to have children do it solely on their own. The intention was to make it self-sustaining and to be directed and led by youth. And the festivals and stuff that have been done to date have really been directed and led by the city, with the youth providing, I'm going to really put a lot of minimal contact into it. I've talked to people who are on the committee, and they were asked questions, not really about how to run it, but rather just details about minor things. So the intention was to reverse that. And so you're telling me that basically that was not done, because what I'm hearing is that you asked to see who else wanted to take it over. No one else wanted to take it over. That wasn't the motion. And then to have children the youth to do it themselves, which was also not without direct supervision, which was also not the motion. The motion was to make it self-sustaining cost recovery and to have it led really by youth, not controlled entirely by youth, but led by youth. So I understand that COVID took on as something, but that does not change the fact that what's being brought forward does not remotely reflect what was directed by council. So was there any action to actually do either of?
I'm sorry, Councillor Hughes. Again, we did talk to our partners, and perhaps we didn't quite understand what the original council motion was. Regardless, though, the festival being self-sustaining is going to take more work and more time, and given the current circumstances and the current structure of the festival, this is why we're bringing the recommendation forward to cease the festival for going forward and focus on the year-long cultural development activities.
And then those really won't be for cost recovery either, since their majority will be low or no cost, right? So how much do we actually plan to recover under this current plan versus the expenditures?
So in the budget submission that we looked at, the lines for this also includes cultural development, arts development work for artists at all levels, including established artists as well as youth artists. And the total budget that we had put forward for this ask is a net of $1,900. So with the vast majority of workshops being cost recovery, for bringing in an instructor or a consultant, there will be an admission fee to cover the costs of that. So we've got a small budget for supplies and or marketing set aside. So very minimal.
So that we said that the cost savings over 2 years would be $75,000. But the planned expenditure over the 2 years was well over 100,000. So our budget for doing this is not 1,900. What is the budget to do this that's being proposed?
I don't have those details handy right now. We can provide those later.
You don't know how much it's going to cost to do this scenario that you're proposing?
Well, because we don't actually know what the actual activities are going to be that the youth are going to direct. Again, we are planning on keeping the Youth Advisory Committee. They have played a key role, and they're the ones who decide what they do through the year. It's not staff that decide that. It really is the youth that decide what they want to do. The fashion show, the Illuminate event that happened just a few weeks ago, that was all decided and directed by the youth, and we'll continue to do it that way.
Okay, what's the budget? Because you have to have a budget, regardless of what they intend to do. They have to work within a budget. So what is the budget being planned for 2021, assuming this was to be approved?
Again, I have the net budget of $1,900, and I'm just I can provide those full details later as part of the budget process.
Okay, because you're telling me how much we saved in the
Yeah.
slide, but you can't tell me how much it's going to cost. How can we know how much we saved if we don't know how much it's going to cost? Like, this is basic math.
So
Councillor
we
Hughes.
would,
I'm getting very frustrated right now.
Yeah, I
because
know, but
this math-
Councillor Hughes, you sound frustrated. I think let's let Mr. Hiltz and Mr. Pearson take it away and provide a little bit more detail. I mean, we have $60,000 in the budget for 2020 that's been identified. We had in the motion, as you've identified, $45,000 in 2021. And moving forward, I mean, I get your point in relation to looking for more of a detailed plan, and you can maybe make a change in the recommendation. But for right now, staff will have to look at your question and come back with a more detailed plan. I mean, right now, everything is, from what I've taken from the presentation, is everything is going to depend upon what types of programs that they can even possibly do in the current environment. So if you have a request of staff to come back with the actual costing of what the impact will be, I mean, we can put that forward, or if you want to change the recommendation, we can do that as well.
I'm just trying to figure out what this real cost is going to be. Like, is it just, this just seems like a simple number to be able to provide when we're talking about budget. Okay, so the other question I have is, so the budget for this year was 60,000. And I'm wondering, and maybe this is to Mr. Scoble or Mr. Hiltz, I guess Mr. Hiltz is here today, is given COVID and everything that we've had to do and cancel so many, I'm just wondering why the budget for this was not, I thought that this budget was removed for this year, and yet we're still doing a festival in some virtual form, right? So I thought that this was taken off the table because of COVID budget cuts.
So I'll let Mr. Pearson talk to what happened in 2020 regarding Amplify. And some of that money would have been returned through that process, but I'll let Mr. Pearson talk to that exact process.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor, yes, the budget for Amplify was reduced greatly, and to the point where I think very minimal. We didn't hire a coordinator. Kathleen, what is the final budget that you're working with for this?
$5,000.
$5,000 is what we're spending this year. So again, very, very minimal.
Okay. Okay, so we could actually do a virtual, is it just because it's a lot shorter? Or is it just 2 or 3 things as opposed to many, or is that?
Yeah, it's essentially just things that fit into an online format.
And we didn't hire a separate festival coordinator, so there's no extra staff costs. The organization is being done by Kathleen. Okay,
so I guess the final question I have is, part of the cost of what was being brought forward initially from before it was reduced in funding included an staffing cost. So are you telling that moving forward that staffing cost will no longer be necessary?
Correct.
Okay, so a bulk of that would actually be removed then because the staffing is no longer being used. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so, and we're not looking at, if you're looking at 1,900 total costs, that's what I'm trying to get. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, if maybe it's not as big as I thought it was. Is that you're telling me that it was 45 and 30, so that would be 75. And you're looking at doing this now for 1,900-ish a year to run whatever we end up doing.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And the current staff that we have can handle the demands of handling these programs throughout the year?
Yes.
Okay. I feel less nervous about this, if that's the situation. Okay, that's it for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Good questions. Mayor Herron, any comments, questions? Councillor Hanson, any questions?
Yes, thank you. Just to clarify, Paul and Kathleen, and thank you for the presentation. So in order to be self-sustaining, you'd still have to have supervision. So, I mean, it's good that it's created by youth, led by youth, but the cost really comes in with supervision of what the youth are doing. And this recommendation fulfills that supervision by moving it into community services. Would that be correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. I think it's COVID's been tough, and clearly it's hard to navigate in a new world of COVID, and this is, for me, sad for Amplify, but I think Amplify is also morphing. It's also changing, and I have to really tell you that I'm grateful for all the people that you spoke to in the stakeholder engagement. That's quite a fair number of folks that would have had a hand in this, and it's really important to get their feedback. So I have to say, Chair, I'm very comfortable with this recommendation. I don't know what committee's going to do with it. Thank you for all the background work. I don't think this motion says we don't support youth. I think it says that we need to rethink this, and we need to rethink it differently, and we need to understand that we don't have the funds available to us, which changes the capacity of what the youth can do. So I think that doesn't mean this is gone forever. I think it means that as we get out of COVID, there could be a whole new look at what Amplify might be later in 5 years' time. And I think it could be terrific. But I think for now, this is a really prudent recommendation, and I support it.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Appreciated. Any other comments or questions of staff? Seeing none, Mayor Herron wants to put forward the recommendation then.
All right. So I will recommend that the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council that the St. Albert Amplify Creative Youth Development Program be transitioned into community services, regular cultural development work within the purview of the community cultural coordinators, and that the budget motion PM 2020-084 approving separate project funding for the St. Albert Amplify Festival in 2021 and 2022 budget years be rescinded.
Any questions or comments further? Seeing none, Councillor Hughes, go ahead before I accept that.
Yeah, I just want to thank both Kathleen and Paul just for handling all the questions I had with the concerns. I feel comfortable with this because I'm believing that the budget's not going to be increasing when we see it in November or October. So, or a couple of weeks, I guess. So with the intention of trying to do what you can with the budget that we currently have and understanding that budget restrictions that we've been imposing or expecting from many departments, I think this is a way of compromising to achieve the goal of not letting everything fall by the wayside, but at the same time, recognizing that we need to do it with the current funding that we have without adding additional funding. So I feel much more comfortable now that we've got some clarity on that about the funding levels, that this is a way to actually achieve the goals, which is basically what we've been trying to do right across the board this year, is saying how can we do as much as we can with less. And this is another way of demonstrating that we're trying to achieve that. So I'm comfortable supporting the motion.
That's good because I haven't accepted it yet. But I will accept it now. And anything to open, Mayor Hare?
No, I'll just, honestly, Paul, Kathleen, Amplify is much beloved in St. Albert, but at the same time, council was struggling with the amount of funding and the amount of youth that were benefiting from it. So honestly, to save $55,000 in 2020 and then another 75 over the next couple of years, but still managing to engage the youth and find them that avenue for their creative outlets, I think is fantastic. So appreciate. I said to Carrie earlier, there was a different tone in this Amplify report than I've seen in the past. And so I see the recognition of fiscal hardships with the joy that we find in Amplify. So I appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you, Mayor Heron. My only comments would be, I think, is a sentence that's in the report that says that, was talking about when Amplify first stood up, and it was that Amplify would be for youth by youth. And I really hope that we don't lose that, because sometimes within an organization, certain voices can be lost or not heard. And so I'm going to trust and hope that our youth's voices in whatever form this takes within our community development will be heard and will be considered. And COVID and this pandemic has taken away so much from us, and I really hope that somehow we will be able to accomplish a festival honoring and for our youth and by our youth in some format, if not virtually this time. And who better to lead us in a virtual format than our youth? So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what actually comes forward. But next year and moving forward, I'm really hoping that we see something great for our youth and by our youth. So anything else by any other members of the committee? Seeing nothing, Mayor Heron, to close?
Nothing further.
Call the question then. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. I have nothing else on my agenda. So I thank you very much, Mr. Pearson, Kathleen. I really appreciate all your work that you've sorry, I apologize. My mic shut off. Thank you very much for all of your work. Mr. Hiltz, I have nothing else, so I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much for everybody who joined us.